at some news stories. A lot of interesting stuff. You probably heard about this in the last week or so. A bunch of crosswalks, some in Silicon Valley and some in Seattle and elsewhere, were hacked to play joke voices. AI synthesized voices of Elon Musk and Zuckerberg and stuff. And I wondered how it was done, although I had a pretty good idea. I once had to help a guy fix this voice at a crosswalk near City College. I just happened to be walking by, and I saw how he did it. And he had to open a panel that had a sort of lock, like a paper towel lock. And I thought they'd probably, paper towel dispenser lock, I thought they'd probably done that, but it turned out to be even easier than that. The brand of crosswalks they used here just used Bluetooth to update it. And you could download the app and put it on your phone. It was freely available to everybody. And it had a default password of 1234, which people probably didn't change. So it was even easier than I thought. And this, what I heard from people was the actual difficult part was getting the AI to make a good enough voice. The part about putting a voice on the device was so easy as to not even be worth talking about. So, this is what happened a lot with the Internet of Things. A whole lot of home security cameras and all sorts of devices are set up this way. For a long time, those little cheap ATMs that you see in gas stations were set up this way. All you had to do is pull the plug and plug it back in again to set it back to the factory default password or something of that sort. All these devices tended to be designed by people that didn't really think of security very much. And it's the same thing was true of Cisco routers maybe 20 years ago. They had a special port on them to connect to your hardwired 4-wire telephone line, and there was just a private phone number in the 4-digit extension of your phone system that would get you on the router, and you'd be in with no further authentication needed. Just figuring, knowing that number was considered enough security. So I didn't know this. Maybe you people do. Zoom lets you remote control devices. I guess perhaps I saw that, but I've never used that feature. But what these guys do is they send an appealing invitation to someone. They target people that have high-value crypto holdings, like the CEO of crypto companies, and they claim to be Bloomberg, interviewing you because of your important financial success, which is an important business contact, of course. And then when you connect to the Zoom to do this supposedly important meeting with Bloomberg, they pop up this box that says Zoom is requesting remote control of your screen. And the way they did this was they changed their user account to Zoom, their user account name. And this looks very much like the box that you probably know that does pop up all the time in Zoom. If you freshly installed Zoom on a Mac, you'll get this message. Here, let me see if this is a student calling. I am Sam. Can I help you? Okay, that's more political spam. This guy's been calling me for a while. Very annoying. Anyway, this is very convincing. This looks like something you would just approve. You have to approve things that look just like this to make Zoom work. You have to approve something like screen recording and screen sharing and stuff. So it's working quite well. And of course, once you remote approve this, they install malware on your machine and steal your crypto. So it's a pretty good attack, social engineering attack. And these guys say there are some tools you can get that will prevent this feature from being turned on. And, I would, if I had influence over Zoom, I would tell them you really need to have a much better process than this. Getting someone remote control of your screen really ought to require some difficult process, like going into settings and biometrically authenticating yourself or something like that. I'm not quite sure. There should be something more than this required to approve that. Anyway, so the United States, as you know, under Trump has declared huge tariffs based on a crackpot theory made by a guy named Peter Navarro that forged his references to pretend to have some authority to justify this high tariff plan, which almost no other economist thinks is a good idea. And the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, also agrees it's not a good idea. And they have evaluated the result, and they said the country that is most going to be hurt by this is the U.S. We are going to hurt the entire world, but we're mostly going to hurt ourselves. Our growth is going to go down from 2.7 to 1.8%. Canada will be hurt to a lesser extent, Japan, the UK. And I saw the notes for China here. China will also be hurt, but again, not by much. For some reason, they didn't put China, but China expected to grow by 4%, down from 4.6%. So we will be the main losers of this. And this doesn't even weigh in the much larger long-term effect, which is already happening since we have revealed ourselves to be governed by lunatics that have no honor, that do not adhere to treaties, that do not even have consistent policies. Our Nazi regime is just crazy. The dollar will no longer be the reserve currency of the world. It used to be trusted primarily because America had political stability is the main reason you could trust our dollar, and we had, but people don't think of us as a stable or trustworthy nation anymore. So it may be that the dollar will cease to be the reserve currency of the world, and that will greatly harm our economy, among other things. Anyway, so this is another supply chain attack. There have been a ton of these. Ripple recommends a JavaScript library for Node.js applications, and they managed to compromise a developer account and upload poisoned versions of the official library files. They weren't up there too long. They were up there for, it looks like, about an hour before they detected it and took them down. But in that time, there were maybe a couple of hundred downloads, and those people are using these libraries to write applications, and all the people that use that code, it will send your seed phrase to your wallet to a third party so they can steal your crypto. In case you haven't made a crypto seed wallet, when you make a crypto wallet, you have to have a large random number, which is your private key, and they translate that into a series of about 12 words, common English words, and that you can write down or print on a piece of paper or save somewhere safe. And that's what you have to do. And anybody with that information can get in your wallet and take all your money. And therefore, many crypto attacks rely on socially engineering somebody to somehow convey that information to you. And this is one of them. The SolarWinds attack, when Russia attacked American companies very successfully, brought people aware of supply chain attacks. In the SolarWinds attack a few years ago, the Russians managed to compromise the development environment at the company SolarWinds that makes remote control software used by many large corporations, and they poisoned the official software update from the real company, signed by the real company. So how would anybody know that was unsafe? This is what you do. You go through the official update process, you update your software, and the official update contained malware that put your company under control of Russia. And they then use this to attack people, install more malware and all that. It's pretty scary, and there's essentially no defense. How can your antivirus and your other defenses detect if code looks suspicious? But the one thing that doesn't look suspicious is an official update from the official company that made your software. It's not clear what you could possibly do to detect this. So I guess you could have data exfiltration sensors on your network to try to see if something sensitive is going out. That might possibly catch certain kinds of attacks, but smarter attacks it won't catch. That's a tough one. And the supply chain attacks are growing in popularity. So the EFF, a very good company for preserving the privacy of people on the internet, says Florida has demanded an encryption backdoor with a new bill. So talking about social media use by minors, which is certainly a politically hot topic, but instead of just saying you should not let people below the age of like 13 or something use your social network, it says they must provide a message to decrypt end-to-end communication when law enforcement obtains a subpoena. It's not clear why that's related in any way to minors using the internet, but certainly this is the huge issue. We've tried this many times in the world of cryptography. If there is some kind of backdoor for law enforcement, that means the encryption is not secure and bad guys will get in there too. The gold standard that is now recommended is end-to-end encryption, like used by WhatsApp and Signal and Apple iCloud, where even the people hosting the service do not have the key. They can't read the data. All they can read is the garbled encrypted stuff. Only the end user has the key. But that means you can't hand it over to law enforcement, and law enforcement, of course, doesn't like that. So this is kind of a fun article about radio hacking. This guy had a apartment, and the landlord controlled the boiler, but the temperature control didn't work very well because of the way it was set up, and he wanted to control it with his own computer system, but it was too far away from his computer, and so what he did was he eventually managed to figure out how to relay the signal to reach the boiler, and then he built some custom hardware with a software-defined radio, and then he could write software that would take over controlling the temperature. So it's pretty cool, pretty nice project. Like you said, if you're doing this without the permission of your landlord, you might void your lease or something. But from a technical point of view, it's interesting to see how he detected the radio signals, analyzed them, figured out what kind of hardware would be needed to duplicate them, and set that up. And this one's pretty amazing. Russia, you probably know about search engine optimization. For a while, there have been people who you can pay to make your website go higher in Google search rankings. And the way they do it is by flooding comment on other people's websites and by putting up many fake websites that no human will ever read, just full of keywords and links to your page to try to fool the Google search bot into thinking that your page is popular. And now there's the AI version of this. Russia has pages flooding the internet. They often have Pravda somewhere in the URL or somewhere in the name. That's the Russian word for truth, part of their ministry of disinformation. And they'll put up false statements there, and then they wait for AI bots to include that information in their searches, and it's quite effective. So if you ask about Russian propaganda things like, was the U.S. building bioweapons in Ukraine, I think is one of them. We weren't, but they really want to say we were. And that makes Ukraine a terrible place, and it's right for them to invade. And they managed to get something like 30% of AI-based search engines to start giving that answer, or give that answer 30% of the time, because there are many, many pages on the internet saying that. And this is the fundamental problem of all the disinformation. The internet is all full of garbage, and a whole bunch of people believe lies because it's real easy to put lies on the internet. Anyway, that's enough of the news.